Deportiva y con swing.
Deportiva y con swing.
La factoría del deporte desde New York para ti. Es una máquina.
Es una máquina
Pensada para ti.
pensada para ti.
Número uno en las redes, dale like y compartir. Con informaciones importantes siempre frescas.
Y con entrevistas que te ponen de cabeza.
Lo mejor del deporte lo encontrarás aquí.
Búscale en las redes, dale like y compartir.
Suscríbete,
Ay sí,
infórmate.
ok. Dale a la campana para que te llegue.
Sorry about the echo chamber. We have a whole bunch of people on here, some familiar faces, some not as much. My name is Jason Zillow, for those of you who are first timers, and I head the communications department for the Yankees. So there's a lot of people on here who aren't probably that familiar with our format here. We have Rachel Balkovec here. We're going to take questions for her. As many as we can. Once Rachel's done, we'll have Kevin Reese, who's our VP of Player Development. Once Kevin has concluded, we'll have Brian Cashman, the Yankees' longtime general manager, with us as well. A few footnotes, again, for those of you especially who are joining for the first time. There's a lot of names on my list here who I simply do not know. If there's a way for you to also include your affiliation with your name, that would be very helpful. If you are unable to, then if and when we call on you, if you can please identify yourselves and your affiliation for both myself and Rachel and Kevin and Brian, so we know who we're speaking to. Your video camera must be turned on to ask a question. To the technical side of things, for those of you asking questions, you should be familiar, but at the bottom of your screen, there's a raise hand function. You would need to click that for us to know that you'd like to ask a question. And then finally, when you are asked a question, or when you are addressing one of the people on the Zoom, just please unmute yourself, obviously, but we've all seen a lot of mouths moving without any volume over the last couple of years. So just note to selves. All right, so we can start. I know Rachel's here with us. It became official yesterday. Rachel Balkovec was named manager of the Tampa Tarpons, and she will become the first full-time female manager in the history of affiliated baseball. And obviously, that's why we have 112 participants on this Zoom call. Rachel, good to see you. Before we go to the long list of questions, I just kind of open it up to you. First, congratulations. And then second, do you have any general thoughts or feelings or remarks that you would like to share with everyone?
Everyone good? My audio's good? We can hear? Okay. I just want to, first of all, thank everyone for being here. And I think, the first word that comes to mind in this situation is just gratitude. And there's a long list of people, but obviously the Yankees are at the forefront of my mind right now. And just understanding that this is a tidal wave of decisions starting way before my time with, Cash hiring Kim Ng and Gene way before I was a thought. So I think this is really nothing new for the Yankees. It's just, how it's always been. They've been very progressive for a really long time. And obviously that's led to a lot of success. And it's just, I'm just, again, feeling a lot of gratitude for them, but also thinking back to the early days of my career with the St. Louis Cardinals and Pete Prinzi and Renee Pena hiring me as a strength and conditioning coach when there were no women around, so it was very much the dark ages in that regard. And they were really pioneers in hiring me as a female that was going to be working with all of the players and also making them run conditioning and do those things, which is very difficult. So, for them to put trust in me back then in 2012 and 2014, that was a huge step for me in my career. And then obviously just feeling gratitude for my family, my parents who raised me to be a competitive athlete, not a woman or a man, but just to be competitive and capable and aggressive. And all of those things have obviously led to where I'm at today. So just feeling very grateful for a lot of people today.
Thank you, Rachel. We can start with questions. We'll do some low-hanging fruit for me since I know some of these people. Jake Seiner from the Associated Press. Please unmute.
Hey, Rachel, congratulations. My question for you is just how would you describe your style of strategy and strategy for communicating, connecting with players? What's worked for you in your 10 years in baseball so far, just getting to know people and getting to lead people?
You know, there's a lot of things that have worked and a lot of things that haven't worked. And I think that's the story with any coach. And so I really think as a coach of young men or just young people in general, being direct and being clear about your standards and being clear about what you want is probably going to end up pretty well. Being honest and upfront is really kind of my style. And I think anyone who's worked with me or for me or whatever would agree with that, is that I'm pretty direct and just straightforward about what I want or how I feel about what's going on. And I think that, you know, might be painful up front, but ultimately leads to really fast moving conversation about, you know, things good or bad. So I would say my leadership style is definitely very direct.
We go next to Lindsay Adler with The Athletic.
Hey, Rachel, you know, I think this is probably the most attention a low A manager has ever gotten for this hiring. What do you make of the attention, and what do you make about some of the discussion about like your qualifications and your background and sort of how you fit into this larger player development ecosystem?
I think first off, you know, I've been in baseball for 10 years, so it feels a little interesting to me that there's so much attention now, but obviously, you know, society's changed, the world has changed, social media has changed. And so we're celebrating women in sports in general a lot more than we ever were in 2012 when I first got in. But also just the comments and, you know, some of the negativity, which I hear more from my sisters than I actually read, you know, but I think it's interesting. You know, 3 years ago on this day, I was sleeping on a mattress that I had pulled out of a dumpster in Amsterdam. And, you know, 4 years ago, I was studying physics flashcards on the floor of a bathroom stall in the San Antonio Missions women's restroom because I wasn't able to fit in the clubhouse, you know. And I think it's interesting to me because I don't understand the negativity. Like, if you know my story and you have a pulse, I think it's pretty hard not to get behind what's going on here. And I just, you know, if you know yourself and you know where you came from, it doesn't really matter, you know. So that's how I kind of deal with the negativity or anything that I hear coming my way. It's hilarious to me because it's, you know, it's the American dream. There's definitely been some dark times in my career that I've been able to overcome myself and with support of those around me. So I think that everybody can enjoy a piece of my story.
We can go next to Brian Hoke with Yankees.com.
Hey, Rachel, congratulations. Could you just go into, I guess, the timeline of how this opportunity came about? Like, did you approach them? Did you express opportunity in the job? Or did they come to you?
I think Kevin's going to be a better person to answer that question eventually. But my timeline was, you know, it was getting middle of December. And obviously there's been some change in our organization and contracts are being discussed. And I had stopped down in Tampa to see a player, and you know, Dylan Lawson said, hey, you know, Kevin wants to talk to you about being a manager. And I didn't really have much time to think about it. So, you know, Kevin really is the brainchild behind all of this. And he approached me and we had a talk, and I just kind of said, look, I'm going to make mistakes. I need support. And I think they kind of were like, yeah, duh, you know, we're here to support you. And we see you, you know, in a leadership position. And that was really middle of December. I frankly was very focused on being a hitting coach. You know, I hadn't had this in my mind. I thought, okay, I'm going to be a hitting coach. I was kind of envisioning myself in that role next year. And credit to the Yankees and to Kevin Reese for coming to me with the idea.
Awesome. Thank you.
Brendan Cuddy, NJ.com. Please unmute.
Rachel, congratulations. What should players expect from you as a manager?
I think they already know, thankfully, in our organization. It's been awesome to have a lot of guys reaching out and congratulating and saying they're excited. And they already know, you know, it's going to be definitely high standards and very clear standards. And if something goes on that's not, you know, for the good of the team, they're going to hear it from me. And I think it's, again, just going back to honesty and being direct with them and, hoping for the same. So they can definitely expect some loud music in the clubhouse. They already know that, just a fun environment. One of my passions is creating a really competitive environment. And sometimes that's lost in the minor league system. The wins aren't always on the forefront of everyone's minds. It's about development. But for me, it's like, how do we get these guys to compete every day? And really, even though, the wins maybe don't matter as much as the major league level, getting every day to matter and every practice to matter. That's really what I'm passionate about.
Move next to Ken Davidoff at the New York Post.
Hey, Rachel, congratulations. Are you fully recovered from that Jared Kelenic foul ball?
Yeah, if anyone's wondering, I'm actually practicing on some agility so I can jump out of the way next time. Fielded some ground balls bare hand. So yeah, I'm recovered and hopefully my reaction time has increased since then.
But I do want to ask you about a player from that Futures game, Jason Dominguez, and just what you saw in the second half of last season. And I would think there's a chance you'll be managing him in 22.
Yeah, I always just want to direct the attention to him as a person. I think that the conversation very much is, okay, he can hit the ball hard. Like we all know that, but I think that less people understand the type of person he is. He's a phenomenal person in the clubhouse. His aptitude is so high. He wants to learn. I mean, we're literally doing off-season English classes right now. We're not really, him and I aren't even talking that much about baseball. We're talking about English classes so he can be a better person in the clubhouse, be a leader for both Latin American and American players in his future. And I think I always want to direct the conversation that way because, everyone knows his baseball talent. That's obvious, but I think behind closed doors, people need to understand that's a really special person. And what he brings to the clubhouse from a character standpoint is phenomenal.
Thanks, Rich.
Go next to Pete Caldera with the Bergen Record.
Hi, Rachel. Hey, you've talked in the past about your aspirations of wanting to be a major league general manager. Is that still part of your long-term goal? And was being a field manager ever part of the process in your mind towards your long-term goals?
That's very much so still in my mind, but I understand that's a very long-term goal. It's just, we all have those in our mind of just seeing 10, 15 years down the line. My thought originally getting out of strength and conditioning, going back to school for a second master's degree was always to be still an on-field coach. So I thought the first step was being a hitting coach, getting closer to on-field evaluation, understanding trade value, understanding all of those conversations that I wasn't a part of, as a strength and conditioning coach. And frankly, I thought, scouting was going to be necessary. But we're living in a different time. Scouting has changed. Scouting is a lot of video and analytics and less of just, the seasoned eyes. And I think that, the way that general managers are right now, there's a lot of people who have had that as a path. But I do see an opportunity for an on-field coach who spent a lot of time in player development, boots on the ground, working with players. That can also be a value in the front office. And especially right now, it could be something that's unique. So right now I'm just focused on, okay, I'm a hitting coach and now I'm a manager. Like this is where I'm going to stay. I don't really have a timeline for when I would leave, but I just know in the future that leadership in the front office is definitely present in my mind.
Thank you.
We'll take a few more from our beat crew and then move along to others who have their hands raised. We can go next. I know Sweeney Murdy was here. Sweeney Murdy from WFAN.
Hi, Rachel. Congratulations. Nice to talk to you. You mentioned how your sisters kind of inform you of what's going on. I'm curious, in your years coaching already, have you had any pushback from players that you've coached and how you've dealt with it? How have their teammates maybe stood up for you or did things? What kind of things have you seen already in your time as a coach? In 10 years, so little. It's like, I don't know if I've crossed paths with several thousand players personally right now, so little that it's not even worth mentioning. And I think that, the outside perception is always the thing. When players meet me, I think probably there's a level of curiosity, which that's normal. Change is change. I was curious. I'm like, geez, what am I gonna look like in a uniform? Like I was curious, like myself. So I'm not gonna blame anyone for being curious or not really understanding the situation.
but I just know within 5 minutes, I walk into the room, the presence that I have, how I speak confidently. I'm bilingual, and that's something that I learned. I wasn't born into I'm from Nebraska. I was not born into a bilingual home. I've worked to learn that. And so as soon as I open my mouth and start speaking, I'm speaking in Spanish and English, and they hear what I'm saying, and it's aligned with what everybody else is saying, and I know I'm talking about, it all just goes away. So it's just so fast. That level of curiosity is like, oh, okay, it's not a big deal. And that's on the inside. The players that I've worked with, whether they like me, they don't like me, they like what I'm saying, they don't like what I'm saying, I do feel like they respect me. And at the very least, they know that I'm passionate, hardworking, and I know what I'm talking about. Whether they like it or not, is a different story. And every coach goes through that. So it's been so small. I think most of the times it's outside perceptions. It's people who haven't met me, who don't understand how a woman could get the respect of these young guys. Like, that's fine. I don't need that. I have players texting me right now saying congratulations and how happy they are. And it's like, okay, I don't need to have other people understand it. It's just focusing on the Yankees and the players and the coaches within the organization.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Go to Laura Albanese with Newsday.
Sorry about that. Hey, Rachel, you talked a little bit about the trailblazers around you, Gene Ackerman, Kinning. I was wondering if you were able to talk to them in regards to just the heightened expectations and just the realities of being a more high profile woman in this profession.
I haven't been in touch with them yet. However, I know Gene's reached out, so it's been a bit of a whirlwind. And I've talked to Gene before, and honestly, I've known about them since I first got into baseball. And so especially if you know Gene, and I'm sure all the people on the call do, she doesn't play, and so it's clear that how she's gotten respect over the years. It's clear why she's been around for so long. And that's definitely something I draw on. Like, she's definitely, how do I say this? She's definitely a firecracker, and she's inspired me also to be myself and not, shy away. It's not just about having a seat at the table. It's about speaking up when you're at the table. And she most certainly does. So it's something that I paid attention to over the past decade for sure. And she's someone that I look to for guidance.
Michelle Steele, thank you for being patient. You have the next question from ESPN.
Thanks, Jason. Rachel, congratulations on your new role and the work that it definitely took to get here. I wanted to ask about your goals for the upcoming year, whether it's, getting guys promoted to the next level, wins or losses, guys buying into the process. How do you define success for yourself this year?
My goal is to know, really to know the names of the girlfriends, the dogs, the families of all the players. My goal is to develop them as young men and young people who have an immense amount of pressure on them. My goal is to support the coaches that are on the staff who are going to be talking more, nuts and bolts of pitching and hitting with them and defense. It's really just to be a supporter and to facilitate an environment where they can be successful and just design the environment, and let the rest take care of itself. So it's really just focusing on the person. And obviously you need good knowledge. You need coaches that know what they're doing and can communicate well. The data and the information that we have can communicate that well to the players. And in this role, it's, I'm more of a facilitator. And I know I'll still have a heavy hand in hitting, but also it's more of a leadership position. And that's what I'll be focused on, just to get to know the guys as well as I can so they feel comfortable. And like I said, ready and able to handle the amount of pressure that they have every day in their lives.
Mark Topkin, please unmute. Mark is from the Tampa Bay Times.
Got it. Thanks, Rachel. Rachel, do you think there's any benefit that there's going to be more attention, as we've just talked about on this call, that you're doing this in Tampa, where you're familiar with the staff, the facility, you've got the organization leaders right there with you?
I mean, yeah, it's absolutely a benefit. I love Tampa. It's been great being there, and I'm knowing some of the community members and just getting to know the town and the city. It's really a phenomenal place to be. And obviously having our complex right there is going to be really helpful. I'm obviously going to need support. There's no hiding that. And to have a lot of our staff members there that can just hop over and have a conversation anytime is going to be really helpful.
And just a quick follow-up, you guys do a lot of your rehab players sometimes come there. Is that something that you will see as a different challenge to deal with, you know, an Aaron Judge or whomever on a rehab assignment?
No, I've just had such positive experiences in the past with rehab players coming through and just being great, role models and resources for the guys. It's always a great time when a major league player comes through an affiliate and can talk to them, give them some good spread, get them some good food, maybe better than some of the minor league parks that we experience. And it's always a pleasure. It's always a good thing when they come through. I don't see it being more of a challenge, but it's a great opportunity.
We go next to Katie Beck, NBC Nightly News. Katie, go ahead.
Okay, hi there, Rachel. I'm not sure if you remember me. I interviewed you back in 2019. We did a profile piece on you.
Of course.
And at that time, nice to see you again. I think of that interview so fondly in the dugout there in Tampa, and really enjoyed my time with you. But I remember in that conversation, you were detailing how when you were first interviewing for jobs as a strength coach, people would love your resume and then they'd hear a female voice on the line and they'd say, no, thanks. And actually one person was bold enough to say, I want to hire you, but my administration is not willing to hire a woman. Just curious if you think today that same scenario would happen. Have we made progress on that front? Or would another female in that situation face the same hurdle?
The bias and stereotypes are going to be around forever, but I do think we've made a ton of progress. I mean, there's going to be 11 women in uniform next year. Looking back on those days, it would have been incomprehensible to understand what the next decade was going to look like for myself and for others. And I do think we've made progress. In the numbers, obviously, there's going to be 11 women in uniform, but also just the way that people react to me and the way that they, talk to me, and it's becoming more normal. It's pretty apparent, and it's just exciting to see how much progress we've made. We definitely have a lot of room to grow, but it's really exciting. I think there were many times in my career where I felt extremely lonely, and I literally didn't have anyone to call who might have been going through the same experiences. Like when I started, there were no nutritionists, no mental skills coaches, and so those opportunities for women weren't around, and I felt really lonely at times. And now it's like I've got 100 women that are out there in various roles that are having similar experiences. And it just feels incredible to have that type of support from other people who maybe understand your path. So yeah, I do feel like there's been a lot of progress made.
Well, congratulations on breaking another ceiling. I'm sure it won't be the last time. Thanks.
Thank you.
Peter Savasio, good to see you. Fox 5 New York, please unmute.
Thank you, Jason. Hi, Rachel. Congratulations. Rachel, you mentioned earlier how players have reached out to you, congratulating you. I was curious if you would share maybe some of the names, or even going further, has there been someone that reached out to you that has said something that's really meant a lot for this moment in history with this historic hire?
I mean, yeah, I think Billie Jean King would fall into that category. It's just like, okay, I can die now. My career's over. Billie Jean King congratulates me. And also like Gene Afterman, it's someone that is in the game, in our organization, someone that I've looked up to for a long time, who reaches out, and those things mean a lot. And it makes all the difficult times really worth it to know that you are paying it forward, that what they did for me, I'm able to do for somebody else. And as as far as the guys go, it's shouldn't be any surprises here because I worked with a lot of these players, but it's like Marcos Cabrera and Salinas, Jason, Andres Chaparro, a lot of the players that I've worked with closely who, are reaching out, and I'm like, well, I hope that we get to work together, but I also hope that you're, in AA this year. So it's been a good conversation where it's obviously a lot different than last time. Last time I didn't know any of these guys, and I'm showing up, and I think fair enough. Again, I don't hold any ill will towards them, but I'm sure they were like, okay, what is this? Like, what's going on here? They were all pretty curious. And now this time around, a lot of players reaching out, not only from the Yankees, but also the Cardinals and the Astros as well, just congratulating me. So it's been very different this time around, and just, again, just feeling really supported.
That's great. Thank you.
Move next to Peter Haskell, 880 WCBS.
Hi, can you hear me?
We got you, Pete.
Great, thank you. So if I can ask you, when did you first start to think about a career in Major League Baseball or professional baseball? And based on the fact there are so few women ahead of you, what made you think you could do it?
This was I played college softball, you know, and to be totally honest, I always thought as a college softball player, fast pitch, I always thought, gosh, baseball is so slow, you know? So I would watch baseball in college and think, but then in my master's degree, a bunch of the guys that had played at New Mexico had gotten drafted. And, you know, as many people don't know, I didn't know about the extensive minor league system and the Dominican Republic and winter ball. And I didn't know all of these things. And I just became honestly fascinated with the onion of professional baseball as a business and understanding the lengthy process and journey that these minor leaguers go through. And as a strength coach, you know, I was hearing horror stories about eating hot dogs before the game and working out in the YMCA. And I just thought, I was at LSU at the time, you know, arguably the top of the SEC at that time, and just incredible resources, incredible facilities. And I thought, gosh, you know, what's going on over there? So I really became intrigued with the minor league system. I think a lot of people's stories are, okay, I was a baseball fan, I want to work in the big leagues, I want to be in the show. And my passion was always in the lower levels and the journeys, especially of the Latin American players coming from the Dominican and Venezuela, and, you know, just how long their journeys are. So my passion was always with the minor league system. And, you know, funny story, I started to think about a career in baseball, and I just started, you know, Googling and found a website with a bunch of jobs posted, and all of the jobs were sending emails to men, you know, and I thought, well, that's weird. I was so naive. I was like, well, that's weird. There are no women's names on here. And I went to my boss's office at LSU, Melissa Moore, and I said, Mel, you know, do you know of any women that are working in professional baseball? And she just laughed at me. She was like, there are no women, you know, strength coaches in any men's professional sport. Like, you're crazy. But I think me being naive is just a testament to my upbringing. You know, my father and mother, they deserve an award. They literally raised 3 girls to be absolute hellions. And we didn't know. I literally didn't know that it wasn't possible. So by the time I was 23 and I found out that there weren't any women, I literally still was naive. And I thought, oh, well, you know, I'm at LSU. Like, I have this great young resume for a young coach, you know, at that time. And I thought, oh, they'll hire me. And it was quite a bumpy road for a little bit there. But I think that naivete really helped me at first, because I just didn't know what I was up against. And that was great, you know, because I might have stopped.
We go next to Daniel Alvarez with El Extra Base.
Thank you, Jason. Rachel, congratulations and nice to meet you. You mentioned Spanish-speaking players from the Dominican and Venezuela, and being a Latin media member, I have to ask about the importance of you knowing Spanish and becoming bilingual in order to communicate better with your players, and how important that's going to be. And if I also can ask you for maybe a little message in Spanish of how meaningful this is to you.
So cuando yo aprendí español primero, es mi primer año en béisbol. Yo voy a tratar, yo no voy a ser perfecto, right? Pero mi primer año en béisbol, yo pensaba que cómo yo puedo conectar con los jugadores latinos. Y yo soy de Nebraska, yo soy un lugar sin latinos. So, inmediatamente yo sabía que yo quería aprender español, inmediatamente. Probablemente en 3 meses yo aprendí todo lo que yo necesité a coachar en español en el gimnasio. Y eso es importante, pero lo más importante cosa de eso es relación que tú puedes desarrollar. Si está tratando a aprender la cultura, si está tratando a aprender la lengua, los jugadores pueden ver y tienen mucha precisión por eso, porque hay otros coaches que no están tratando. Y claro, mi español no está perfecto, pero ellos no, they don't care. You know, ellos solo quieren ver que estoy tratando. Y ahora mismo, 10 años más luego, ahora mismo yo tengo la habilidad a conectar mucho mejor porque ahora yo puedo enseñar inglés a ellos. Y I think, I don't know how to say, but when you can be vulnerable, I don't know how to say that word, but they saw me being vulnerable and you know, they get to make fun of me and they get to coach me. Cuando ellos tienen la oportunidad a coachar mí, you know, it changes the dynamic where they can help me with something and I'm helping them. It really helps you to build a relationship. And really, I knew right away when I got in baseball, that was one of the first things that I needed to do to connect with them. And now 10 years later, it's still serving me. Sometimes I miss the days when I didn't speak great Spanish because now I'm close to fluent. I'm not there, but now they just assume that I don't know, grew up with it. And I'm like, no, I learned this. And those early days when I was saying so much funny stuff and they were just laughing at me and correcting me. And it was a really great relationship builder. So.
Go next to Steve Overmeyer, CBS 2 New York.
Thank you so much, Jason. I appreciate it. And congratulations, Rachel. I want to talk a little bit about your education because you have 2 master's degrees in human movement science. Are you seeing a shift in baseball, an increased value in intelligence in the game?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'll talk both from the coaching and the player side, but when I first got in, you know, we didn't have iPhones. Like this is 2012. I think that was my first smartphone, maybe. And now it's like we have so much in video on our cameras on our phone, and that's just the tip of the iceberg, obviously. And I was so fortunate to be with the Astros 2016 through 18 when, you know, maybe unfortunate, but fortunate in some ways where I was seeing them on the forefront of technology and just getting TrackMan and Rapsoda. And I was just, you know, baptized with fire as a strength coach. I was managing 8 different technologies in 2018 and it was extremely helpful. But also I just think that we're seeing the profession of coaching across the board becoming more professionalized, and it's a science, you know, you study how to not only, you know, the technology, but also how to communicate with players. That's behavioral psychology. Like these things have been researched. And while experience wildly helps, you know, and playing professional baseball in the past wildly helps that, we have all these resources now to help us. And on the player side, of course, we're seeing a huge shift in players coming to us and saying, hey, what was my, you know, exit velocity on that? Or, you know, what was my bat speed? And just more educated players who are coming through the system, which makes the communication much more easy than, you know, in 2016. And they're like, what's a blast motion sensor? And now it's just a whole different world for both coaches and players. So 100% we're seeing more educated, but also just more critical thinking going on from both the coaching and the player side.
We're gonna get to a few more. I'm not sure we're going to get to everybody. I know there's some late people raising hands. We'll go to Howard Megdal at Forbes and Baseball Prospectus.
Thanks, Jason. Rachel, congratulations. You spoke about the people who you heard from who are significant figures in women's sports. I spoke to people like Beth Greenwood and Kelsey Whitmore, and they talked about the fact that overnight, your appointment as manager has changed the way they can think of the way their career can develop. I wonder whether you've thought about your role here and how that will manifest itself in the coming years, both as a figure for others in women's baseball and as somebody who's going to be a figure that others can reach out to about pursuing a similar path to yours.
Yeah, I just got the chills when you said that because it's one of the most meaningful, you know, parts of this. You know, obviously I'm invested in my career, but also it's like I have to think about those things. And I don't think you sign your name on the dotted line to do something like this and then say, well, I don't want to be a role model. You know, I just don't subscribe to that. People ask, you know, why are you on social media and why this? And it's like, I want to be a visible idea for young women. I want to be a visible idea for dads that have daughters. You know, I want to be out there, and it's just I have 2 jobs, and that's fine. You know, I'm pretty sure, you know, Jackie Robinson didn't sign up for his job and then go, oh yeah, I don't want to sign autographs. You know, it's like it's part of my job, and I take that very seriously. It's something I'm really passionate about. And I know the impact because, you know, like I said, I was very lonely, you know, and I did have a few people that I was looking towards. And Sue Falsoni with the Dodgers was a physical therapist hired by the Dodgers before I was hired as an intern strength coach a few years before. And I'm not afraid to say I was obsessed with her. You know, I was, any article I could get my hands on, any video, any interview, I was locked in because I was like, okay, this is my hope. And so I knew how important that was for me. And I know that I have to do that for other women, and I want to do it. So it's something I'm very passionate about. And I don't think I really have an option. It's my job to do that.
Thank you. All the best.
Jeffrey Schneider with NBC Phoenix.
Thanks, Jason. Congratulations, Rachel. If I can, I would love to kind of take you back to your days at ASU as the strength and conditioning coach intern. What was your experiences at ASU like, and how did that help you develop into the manager that you are today? And also, if I can sneak a second question in, just to elaborate a little bit on that resume thing that you and Katie had talked about. Did you change your name when you were contacting people from Rachel to Ray? That's kind of the story that we're hearing. So if you can talk about that as well.
So to answer the first part of that, Arizona State came about because, this might be a lengthy answer and you can take what you want, but Arizona State, that internship came about because I had been discriminated against and sat out that year of baseball. And so I had to go and get an internship. And I had known some people at Arizona State, and they were, gracious enough to have me on. I worked with baseball and softball and women's soccer there. And it was, and that was one of the dark times. It was really helpful for them to have me on and keep my resume going. I learned a ton in college in general. I would say between Arizona State and LSU, it's about winning. From the day you set foot on campus, you got to produce. And the minor league system is not always like that. And so you learn a lot from college, because especially nowadays, if you don't win, you are fired. And obviously that happens at the major league level as well. But in the minor league system, these guys spend 6 years going through a minor league system where they haven't competed to win with their teammates for a very long time if they're coming from college, and maybe never, if they're coming from Latin America. And so working in a college setting was absolutely so important for me. I would say being at LSU for 2 years as a graduate assistant was one of the best ways that I could have started my career, because it's win or die, and that's really like a mentality that's never left me. And so I will carry that into my career, I have carried it in my career as a minor league coach, and I'll continue to have that like kind of feeling in me where the pressure is really on, especially nowadays. So that's, that definitely starting in college at Arizona State and LSU was very helpful. The story of me changing my name, so I'll try to make this short, but basically I had fall of 2012, or even winter of 2012. To that point, I had done an internship at Exos, which is a premier private facility. I had done an internship at Arizona State. I had done an internship with the St. Louis Cardinals, a graduate assistant for 2 years at LSU, working basically full time there and getting my master's. I had been to Licey, Los Tigres de Licey, Licey Campeón. I had been there. I had this phenomenal resume for a young person, not just, I'd done 6 internships and all in baseball. And I had the Cardinals internship ended, and, it's an internship. So they're like, hey, we'll call you in 6 months, and you can never hang your hat on that. So I went out job hunting, and I had moved to Phoenix, and I thought, well, great, there's 15 teams in Phoenix. I can probably get an internship with one of those people. And there was probably 8 to 10 jobs posted. I applied for obviously all of them and just got crickets. So I actually got a job working as a waitress, and just started waitressing. I thought, wow, these jobs are really competitive. I thought I had a good resume. And lo and behold, middle of spring training, a team called me and they said, hey, are you still local? Like, one of our guys quit. We need a person like immediately. I had 2 interviews with him, went really well. He was like, you're our person. We're going to hire you. I'll call you tomorrow and we'll start the paperwork. And then I never heard from him. I was like, this is a little strange, so of course I followed up in every way that you could. I'm waiting tables, waiting to get this internship. And finally, several weeks later, he called me, and I'll obviously never forget this phone call, but he just said, hey, I'm really sorry it took me so long to get back. I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but we're not going to be able to hire you. And I do want to let you know it's because you're a woman. And in that very moment, my level of naivete went from a 10 to a 0. I finally understood, and I was grateful that he told me, and he was apologetic. He was trying to be honest and let me know what I was up against. And he even said, my mom's a PhD. I don't have any problem hiring women. I took it to our leadership and they said no. And then I said, well, thanks for being honest. And he was like, well, it gets worse. And I thought, well, how could this possibly get worse? You just told me you were blatantly discriminating against me. And he said, I took so long to get back to you because I called all of the other teams that had jobs posted and they also said the same thing. So that's when I would say the dark times really started. And I ended up waiting tables that year and doing an internship with Arizona State. And then finally, in that fall, Dale Torborg of the Chicago White Sox actually called me because I had been sending my resume to everyone, and offered me an internship to be with their Arizona Fall League team. Meanwhile, all these jobs are, that was just he made it very clear it's an internship. We don't have a full-time spot. So I was applying for jobs, and my sister, Stephanie, I will give her the credit, said, why don't you change your name to Ray and see what happens? And I was like, ha, ha, ha. And then I was like, oh, that's a good idea. So I did. And my hopes there was literally just to get someone on the phone, because I thought, well, they're seeing my name and they're not even calling me to talk to me and even see what I'm about. And I sent out my resume that year with my name as Ray, R-A-E, and got a lot of responses immediately. And my resume was great. I mean, of course I would get those responses. And I got a lot of responses immediately through email. Hey, we're interested. We're going to call you for an interview, et cetera. And then I finally got a phone call from somebody that I didn't know the number. I answered and they said, hey, we're looking for Ray. And I said, oh, this is she. And I was, of course, I was like, this is she. And the guy said, oh, well, there's like shuffling of papers in the background. And he said, oh, I just want to make sure I said your name correctly. And I thought, well, there's only one way to say Ray. You just didn't know I was a woman. So anyway, I was in a bad time to talk, and I said, hey, can we have this conversation tomorrow? And of course I never heard from him. And then honestly, it was pretty short-lived that I changed my name, because at the end of the day, you just have to look yourself in the mirror and be like, well, if they don't want to hire me because I'm a woman, I probably don't want to work for those people. And if this takes years, then it takes years. And I was willing to wait. It got pretty late in that off season. I had already signed up for another internship to move to Boston. I have no idea how I was going to do that. I was broke as a joke. I had no money. I was going to move to Boston and sleep in my car in the wintertime. That was a bad idea, I'm sure. But I had gotten an internship at Eric Cressy's place, who probably is a familiar name in this crowd. And I was moving to Boston to do another internship, and the Cardinals called me back and wanted me to interview for the coordinator position. And I think when I actually got that job, I had $14 in my bank account. I called my parents and I was like, hey, I just made history. Can I borrow some money? Because I'm broke. I got to get to spring training. So it was a pretty rough year. And again, I just reflect back on those times, and it's unbelievable that I'm sitting here talking to you all right now, but I'm just so glad that I didn't give up,
Great answer. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Justin Walters, WPIX, please unmute.
Hi, Rachel. That was such a great story. So congrats, of course, but from changing your name from Rachel to Ray on your resume to this historic accomplishment, what do you want young girls and women to take away from your personal story?
I would just say the thing that's on my mind these days is like, yeah, it's going to be hard and good. I always say this is a little counterintuitive, but I'm glad I was discriminated against. By the time I was full-time, I had done 6 or 7 internships in multiple different places. I was super prepared. And obviously the life experience of going through that changed me forever. I'm glad my path was difficult, and it still serves me to this day. And so if you're feeling like you're not welcome or it's a difficult path, good. Try to look at yourself and go, this is going to be good for me in the future, even if it doesn't feel good in the moment. So I just, it's kind of never give up, but I think never give up until things get hard, and then people want to give up. And it's like, no, that's the moment where you need to say thank you. I want to say thank you to people who've discriminated against me, because it changed me as a person. And as difficult as it was, I'm very glad that I went through that experience.
Ron Blum and Jen Williams, we've done Fox 5 and we've done AP. So If you guys want to bat lead off or close to the top of the order for Reese, we can do that, but we're creeping up on an hour here. So I want to get to a few more that have had their hands raised for a long time. Chris Osborne, Sports and Culture Media, please unmute.
Hey, thanks, guys. Congrats on the big move. It's going to be hopefully exactly what you needed, and it's what baseball needs. I do want to know, though, in the middle of the discrimination and the hard times, were you close to considering maybe a college softball, more unfortunately a traditional move for women, or were you just determined this is my path and I'm doing it for women?
100%. I wouldn't say that I considered it, but I will tell you that during that year in 2013, I got 8 different college jobs, colleges contacting me, and they were all for women's sports. And I just, at the time, I thought, wait a second, at some point it became a chip on my shoulder. And I was like, wait, I can only get a job in women's sports. And that bothered me, not because it's women's sports. I mean, as a college softball player, I really owe everything to that foundation of being a competitive athlete in a women's sport. But I just thought, okay, if I have this resume and I can't even get hired, when is the next woman going to come along who's bilingual, who's worked in winter ball, who's worked for the car? When is the next woman going to come along with my resume and get this job? And so it became a purpose. It became a little bit of a chip on my shoulder. I'm competitive. I was like, oh, okay, you don't want to hire me? Like, okay, I'll see you. I'll see you later. I'll be around. I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel that way in some ways, but yeah, I was getting a lot of jobs. They were all for women's sports. In fact, one of the places I said, if you can give me a men's sport, I will consider that job. And they just flat out said no. And I thought, okay, this is what's going on in the world, and I've got to change it. And I really felt that way even in 2013.
Awesome. Thank you.
Juliet Papa, 10-10 wins. Is that a holiday wreath behind you, Juliet?
Yeah, seasonal wreath, put it that way. How are you?
Good to see you.
Great. And congratulations, Rachel. Nice to meet you. So usually, or most often, success is generated by a vision that you have for yourself. And I was wondering if you had that vision and this trajectory for yourself, that you were determined to get into this position. And also, if you don't mind, do you see a woman professional baseball player in American Major League Baseball in your lifetime?
I'm gonna answer that one first. I think it's an interesting question. I'm a strength and conditioning coach by trade. I am a scientist of the body, if you will. And there are differences between men and women, but the thing is if a woman is good enough, if she can throw the ball hard enough or with enough movement or whatever, I think we're in a time where that will be accepted more. If she has the talent, and it's like, especially with tech and measuring things, it's like, you really can't easily discredit somebody if you don't like them or for whatever reason. It's there in the numbers. So if there's a woman that is good enough to compete, I feel like she will be accepted and supported. So we're in a different time, obviously. So I do think that's possible if there's somebody out there that can do it. You might keep an eye out for Kelsey Whitmore. She might be coming up. There's a woman who just was signed by the Melbourne Aces and in Australia. So there's some things coming around there. And as for a vision, it's, as I said, starting out in baseball, my passion has always been about development. And my vision is to win, but it's to win by making people better humans and opening their minds and their hearts to being a better person and being a better teammate and creating that culture. The vision is to create, as an environment that is the Apple of sports. It's a vision, a very innovative environment. That's definitely my vision. And on top of that, the vision is also to change the world outside of baseball. Baseball is a vehicle. I can't say, and this might be unpopular, but I can't say that I've always been the biggest baseball fan. I haven't. Baseball is a vehicle, and sports are always a vehicle to make positive change in the world. And so I think I've always had a dream of starting sports academies for women in the Dominican Republic. I visit there all the time, and here I am, and I have 3 degrees and I'm working in men's professional sports, and you see the women there who maybe don't have the same opportunity. And it's something that's on my heart that I would like to do in the future. So I think using baseball as a vehicle to create positive change in the world is also part of that vision. You know, winning championships is a part of that vision. So it's definitely multidimensional.
Great, thank you.
Take a final question from John Brophy, Pinstripe Prospects.
Hello, Rachel. Congratulations. I'm fortunate to have seen some of the FCL games in person, the Complex League. I've seen the success that you've had there with them. What do you think it's been like to build a rapport with the players in speaking Spanish and then trying to communicate the hit strikes hard mantra that Dylan Lawson has put in to the Yankees?
Hey, John, good to see you. Yeah, it's been so smooth, both from developing relationships and look, like, I think for the world, this is new, but this is my 10th year, it's going on 11th year in baseball. And, you know, you walk in, you put on some dembo, turn up the music and, you know, show a little salsa moves and like they forget that you're a woman, you know, it's like, they're like, oh, okay, this, you know, this gringa gets it. Like it's really not as difficult anymore. And they've just really been extremely open to me. And I really have had, I hate to make it seem so simple, but I haven't had any problems with developing relationships with the players, I feel like. As far as just implementing the system that the Yankees have and have had for a couple of years now, I think it's been smooth because it's a testament to what they've built over the past few years there with Kevin Reese being at the helm of it and being extremely supportive of the coaches and the coordinators that we have in place. And then Dylan, I feel like, is a genius, and he has made things so simple that you can't even forget our slogan, hit strikes hard. So it's almost too easy maybe. So I think it's been so smooth with him creating a true system that is very user-friendly, easy to implement, easy for the players to understand, easy to communicate. So it's been extremely smooth. And again, that's just top down. You know, it's Kevin Reese overseeing the minor league system and hiring the right people, and those people hiring the right people. So it's been really smooth.
Okay, everybody. Rachel, thank you for such extensive time, and I appreciate everybody's patience on the media's end as we work through what was a lot of hands being raised. So Rachel, congrats.
Thank you, guys.
Look forward to seeing you down in Tampa real soon.
Mm-hmm.
So we have Kevin Reese here. We like
Otniel Batista, el más duro, la máquina deportiva. Tu maldita edad, Otniel, va a seguir.